Hello, and welcome to another rant. This one is just based off of ideas. I don't have anything scripted for I'm going to say, except a few points. Which, I may get more points as I say this. Which is a tangent, which you all know I love. I also have music playing in the background, but I've tested it, you can't hear it. Or barely can. Anyway, today, something that might be controversial for a few of you. It is a conversation about drones, or how I would consider someone as a drone. Starting off, I rarely use the term human as an adjective, or humanity, or anything, as you've always heard the phrase, this whatever makes you human. The only thing that makes you human, in the sense of how humans have created and defined the word human, is the species, the layman termed species name for our species with our genetic code, and those of us who can breed together and produce fertile offspring are humans. Now, human nature and things that are human, as people use often, I don't consider them human. I like to consider them as byproducts of intelligence as we know it. I think that a byproduct of intelligence as we know it could be applied to, and is applied to, more than just humans and more than just apes. Byproducts of intelligence can involve all sorts of things that other animals do and things, but byproducts of more advanced intelligence, or just more complex intelligence, can lead to things that we have that nothing else has. But everything else has something in a very more basic form. One example would be humans can have greed, and humans can collect and store food and resources and then distribute them out to people with different rankings and all sorts of things in a society. And we all consider all these things human things, but I consider them things that are byproducts of intelligence. Now, say a group of wolves had evolved with larger craniums and could handle more complex scenarios. Dogs can learn a lot of things, but let's say this pack of wolves, with the right brain typing, and chance, get into a situation where they have a pack with slightly more complex social structure. And one spring, there's a huge population boom of a certain species that they hunt, and they have a whole load of food. And say somehow they manage to figure out how to preserve food. Say they live near a salt mine or something that humans dig out, and there's just salt lying around or something because it's abandoned, maybe. Maybe by the wolves taking over or something. As a territory kind of thing, that's advanced. Now, say the wolves get all this food and they can store it, but, winter can be really hard, so they could live through the winter without losing a lot of wolves if they could preserve this food and not eat it all at once. Which is a very primitive, very relevant, and those are what I'm looking for. It's a right there instinct to eat everything because you don't know when you'll get food next. But they do know when they'll get food next because they have this food. So say there's a leader of the group that hoards the food and keeps everyone else keeps all the other wolves from eating it all right away, and then stores it with the salt. This meat is preserved, and they go through the spring and the summer and the fall, and then winter comes, and they distribute and ration out this food, these wolves that have gotten intelligent. And maybe they don't distribute it, and a circle or just the top wolf hoard it all to themselves for just basic instinctual preserving your own life, or out of greed, which is simply a more advanced version of that primal instinct, which is very basic. These things would all look really human, and it would be classified as personification in a story. Person, personification, human. To me, they're simply byproducts of intelligence as we know it. I say as we know it because, aliens, blah blah blah, might have that form of intelligence that's different from what we have. But it's really hard to think of an intelligent function that hasn't been tried out at some point on Earth. That's why it's as we know it. If it wasn't as we know it, we couldn't talk about it. So, I'll refrain from using as we know it for now, just for... So, what does this have to do with drones? And drones as in not the things that fly around your house if you're freaked out about the NSA and etc. and government, whatever, if you're American. Or if you're not. I'm talking about humans that don't use their intelligence to its... not to its fullest, because nobody can use their intelligence to their fullest as we know yet. But... sorry, not as we know yet, because... anyway, they just don't use their intelligence as much as other people do, as far as we can tell. People that just don't think really that much in-depthly or in new ways. And then, as opposed, people who are not drones, people who think about things in ways for the sake of thinking about them, or because they get a kick out of thinking about things in weird ways, new ways. They want to make new things. They don't want to just simply carry out their everyday lives doing the same thing every day. They want to think, and they, in their downtime, will think. Or will do something while thinking, or will do something because they thought about doing it. A drone would carry out their day out of regularity, instincts, and what they're raised with, and what's been forced upon them from a higher authority. People who don't think as much, or as in-depthly, are more in tune with their body. As in, they will follow instincts and other things in ways that they can't tell, and without them knowing. A very popular example would be defense mechanisms. People who get criticized on the internet and horribly torn apart because they said something offensive or selfish. I look at that and I think it slightly differently. Say someone bullies someone, you probably have heard this talked about before, but oftentimes people will do horrible things to people or talk offensively, even without intention of it being taken so, out of defense mechanism. Because the body tells you to preserve yourself. And if something is stressing you, it will tell you that it's best, sometimes, that it's best to put that stressor away, to place blame on something, or to find a scapegoat. And your body sometimes will make a scapegoat based on what you know, and place the blame on that without you being aware of it. Especially if you're a drone. So, someone will say, I hate gays, or blah, 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 or will bully something to release stress, and they won't even know it. So, getting torn apart by people who defend people because of whatever reason, it's not always exactly fair, because the person will not learn anything from that, because you aren't explaining anything, you're just forcing your own ideas on them, and they won't change. If you understand it this way, yelling at the person that you can't make fun of a certain group of people or bully doesn't help. It doesn't help. It can't help, because that's going against what their body is telling them to do, and they don't even know why. So that causes more stress, and the body just places more blame on you and turns them against you. So the best way is to find a way to appeal to the person's instincts, or to show them that their instincts, and just sometimes that won't even work because some people just can't think certain ways. So the best thing to do is often to find the people who are defending a group and going out against a bully or anything like that. Talk to those people and let them know that it's not always their fault, and sometimes they just can't help it because their life sucks and they don't know why. Go to people who can think and help them release some, not add extra stress where it's not helping. So, a few examples of things have been told here, and why I'm comparing drones to people in the first place. Exactly. Is I often expose myself to all sorts of people. I not saying I don't go out of my house or anything. I'm quite active and stuff like that. Not insanely, but I expose myself to a lot of people in the comforts of my own home through use of emulators, as in things like Pokemon Showdown and Dueling Network. Earlier in the summer, a few of my friends got me kind of into Yu-Gi-Oh! And I was just like, and exposed me to this thing called Dueling Network, which is playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Online, building your own deck, and just dueling against random people. And there are some very, very drone-like people on there. Just drones so hardcore that they will not take a word you say and will fight you to the tooth over something you're not trying to stress. And same goes for Pokemon Online, not Pokemon Online, Pokemon Online, yes, but what I do is Pokemon Showdown, which is a Pokemon emulator, which just sets you into either random battles or tiered battles. It's run by Smogon, blah blah blah, and just instantly matches up with a completely random person. And in most cases, you'll get someone who's a drone, who won't understand if you try to talk to them about something unrelated to the game, because they're focused on the game as they see it. And most often, in these situations with these games that they'll play, what they're actually doing isn't always having fun. It's a dopamic release of it's a dopamic pleasure, release of dopamine, because when they beat someone in that emulated game, in that simulation, it gives them a false sense of success and something that, it's mocking something in real life when you win in a little game like that. It's mocking declaring your dominance over another person, domesticating an animal, surviving a winter, all these sorts of instinctual things, and it gives you a little bit of dopamine as, yeah, you did something, when actually you didn't do anything to help you live. So, and the worst part is, you can just, as soon as you're done with the game, you can quit. You don't even have to say bye. You can quit instantly, or you can quit out in the middle of the game, neither one of these emulators, and just join to another one and never see that person ever again for the rest of your life. Now, where was I? Crap. This will have to just reset. I completely forgot my train of thought. Oh yeah, dopamic release. And it'll just give you a little burst, and then if there's any sign of something negative, you can just immediately switch out and keep switching out until you get another chance. And if you get 20 games, you beat 20 games in an hour. So you're just doing 1v1s on Pokemon Showdown. You get 20 wins straight in a row. That's a lot of dopamine, but a lot of exposure, and it builds up a lot of tolerance. If you've played Portal 2, and you've beaten the game, and you know what happens to Wheatley after you complete some of the tests that he makes, you can see what a dopamic resistance and tolerance can do to you. The first time it happens, you get a release, and you're like, haha, yes, that felt awesome. And then 10, 50, 1,000 more times, it just becomes, you expect the release, even if it does happen, you think you have a placebic pleasure from it, when actually it didn't really affect you at all because you're so used to it. And it turns you into this mushed, apathetic thing if you expose yourself to it too much and you depend on it so much. Similar thing happened to Wheatley, but in the matter of 20 minutes, as opposed to weeks and weeks. People just do their entire evening, or whatever, on these things, not knowing why they do it in the end. And if you try to expose them away from it, their body will be like, oh, this isn't regular, we're not getting a false success here, we should leave this situation, it's a stressor. And here's the thing, I play these things not for the sake of the game, and I try to point out to people why they're playing it if they don't get fun from it, and if they're playing the game, or if they're just doing a number check in their head, they're not actually playing anything. But me, I don't even play them for fun, as in, I will play Pokemon games for fun, don't get me wrong. But not the emulators. Very rarely is purely the emulator, the Pokemon Showdown, or the Pokemon Online thing. Rarely is that ever fun. Because I don't go in expecting it to be fun. I go in for a metagame of life. People play metagames, which is a game within a game. I play a game outside of two games, linking games together. A game and life. Pokemon and life. It's only Pokemon battling. That's all there is. No training or anything. You give everything EVs as whatever you want. And all this stuff. And you select their own moves and everything. I get aspects from... Here's an introduction to Pokemon battling professionally, or just Pokemon battling in general when you're doing these quick little matches back to back. You have to learn, or you don't have to, but it's great to learn prediction. You send out a fire type, and they have a water type out. You will predict that they will attack you with a water type deck, so you can switch out into a grass type, and it will do very little damage. Or you could predict, like say it starts off and you immediately send out a water type and they send out a fire type, and they would be like, oh, he's obviously going to not fight me with a fire type, so I'm going to switch out into a grass type or whatever, or maybe a flying type to expect me to go into a grass type. But if you can predict their prediction of you predicting the very basic move, then these prediction chains will just keep going and they can get more and more complex. And in the end, you can just choose to go to a completely random thing and hope for the best. But prediction, as I've seen it, I've learned a lot of prediction in these little games that I can apply to real life. And I can predict these little exposures with people because I'll have sometimes just a little chat on the side with someone. And it's gotten to the point where I can learn a lot about someone from just a little chat and how they play Pokemon. I can learn a lot of things. Hello! Hello, everybody, I'm back. Anyway. Had to order pizza and stuff. So, as I was saying, I can predict and learn a lot from people online. Still working out how to I don't really get a lot of exposure with completely random people in the real world, and it's really hard for me to predict people that I already know. But predicting and learning about someone you just meet online that you'll never see again, most likely, I've gotten pretty good at that so far. As one example would be, I got in a conversation with someone where I was explaining this kind of thing, and it was someone who, first of all, you never can tell if someone is either A, mocking you, B, saying things because they think you're right and don't know what they're really saying, or B, actually has reacted the way you think, and what you said is actually true with them. But one person kept saying like that, oh my gosh, I look at things differently now after this 20-minute chat with you, blah 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 blah. I'm totally how you predicted me and all sorts of shit, even though I probably was wrong on a lot of things. Point being, I think I'm decent on predicting actual people for learning shit through a fucking battle simulator. Point being, back on topic for the reason why this is a rant. Because, well, the reason why this is rant is because there's all sorts of things to talk about. Got a little hyper while I was away. But the thing that brought me here is drones on these little things and in real life have an ability that sometimes people who aren't drones will envy. Have you ever been told that you can never unsee something? Like certain things on animals, how you'll never unsee what they look like. Or a symbol in a video game. You'll never unsee it. Well, here's the thing. Drones, people who aren't drones, if you tell them something and implant an idea in their head, they can tell you to fuck off, and they can try to shrug it off, but in reality, they can never ignore something completely. They can never ignore something completely unless they're a drone. And sometimes you'll just sometimes you'll get an idea stuck in your head that you don't want in your head, and saying that you don't want in your head will get stuck in your head even more, and you'll get obsessed with this new idea that someone just yelled at you, saying one perfect example, maybe, not really, from one of my favorite podcasts in the world, the Unscripted podcast, was, if you go up to someone, a pregnant lady, a couple, if you go up to a couple that there's a pregnant lady there in the couple, and she looks like 8 months pregnant or something. She looks like she's gonna give her baby soon, or whatever, or at whatever stage of pregnancy. You go up to them and you shout at them, "I curse your baby!" And then you run away and you never see them again for the rest of your life. Obviously, the first result is, this guy's a psycho. That's what the couple is going to think. But the very sadistic thought is, if something happens to their baby, or their baby dies really early, or something horrible happens, or the baby is just a little shit, in a lot of cases, unless the couple is a drone, there will always be that thought in the back of their mind, what if that guy really did curse our baby? And why did he do it? Even though the person was just playing a prank on them. That kind of thing doesn't happen to a drone. Drones can have the ability to not think and not stress over little things or big things to a level where you can try to implant a thing into their head, an idea into their head, and they will have it not affect them whatsoever, and they will continue in their lives. They will continue on with that event, not learning from it or being haunted by it whatsoever. That's an ability that only drones truly have. Oh, sorry. Phone going off. I'll respond to that in a bit. Anyway. If I'm in a battle with someone on Pokemon Showdown, or doing that work a lot less frequently, because it makes me a bit into that whole I hate humanity kind of thing more easily than Pokemon Showdown. Usually with Pokemon Showdown, I can walk away from nearly any situation with a smile on my face, because life is good. But sometimes doing that work, oh god, because there are just 7-year-olds on it that break rules and shit. Oh, it's horrible. Pokemon Showdown is a much better place, in my opinion. But sometimes I like to mix it up. Anyway, I can talk to someone on those and just talk in this completely hyped up, over philosophical manner. And sometimes I'll mindfuck someone, and sometimes they'll just tell me to fuck off and they'll leave. But one of many things will happen if someone says fuck off and then leaves. One is that they could, actually think about my thing and actually think about the thing I said, and forget my name because they closed a window and be like, huh, I wonder if I'll ever see that guy again. Or they can be a drone and they can just never think about that situation ever again and completely forget it and never learn from it. Or be haunted by it, or hurt by it, or changed at all by it. Even if I said even if somehow I said the most mind-fucking thing in the world, they could just shrug it off as nothing. Or a lesser version of drone, the drone that's not completely a drone, could be like, oh, and react to it, but react to it in a way that a stereotypical dumb person would react to a supernatural story or something. Yeah. Drones learn specifically from certain things that they're conditioned to respect, like a figure of authority from a family, or say they worship some political figure or something, or just worship something that a lot of people worship, a religious figure, or something supernatural. They can have these sort of things, have more authority than anything else, even without them telling them to have authority for them. Blah blah blah. Tongue twist. But anyway, they can just shut out certain groups of people, like people who talk a certain way, as this person is trying to hurt me with their words, so I'm going to ignore them because they are trying to insult me or whatever. And that's most often the case when I talk to someone in a over-philosophical, mindfucky kind of manner. But in other ways, I'll just try to tell someone to think about one thing, oddly, like, are you actually having fun? And someone can have a long talk with me about it, or they can just leave and it could never bother them whatsoever. And I just wonder what goes on in someone's head if they're one of these drones that I'm speaking of, and they're listening to this. And I've experienced drones go from being a drone to, well, not being just almost a perfect drone, into being someone who, at least a little bit, can think about things. I've seen that and I've experienced it, and it's a great feeling to bring people away from being a drone by having them bring themselves out of being a drone. It's a great feeling. It's the only reason I'm there is to learn all sorts of ways to deal with people and think about people and analyze people. But the most important thing, the thing that I'm always looking for, is to see people figure out that thinking is amazing. Thinking is amazing. It can be scary, but someone who isn't one of these drones that I speak of, in both my definition and theirs, if you say that thinking isn't at all just a little cool, think about what you're saying. And on that point, I think, oh god, 30 minutes. Yep, I think I've got to cut it here. See ya, and if you're a drone and you're listening to this, try and think. Just choose some random thing and think about it. Try to think about it in a way that you don't think about it, and nobody else you know has thought about it, and you just have no way of... Think about it in a way that you think nobody's thought about it before. Think about how it makes it feel. Just think about everything whenever you have free time. In your free time, instead of just mindlessly watching a video or a sport or doing an activity that is not productive at all, just think about something. You might find the thing that's the meaning of your life to you. Or you might just find yourself thinking about who you are. Think, damn it. See ya, everybody.